The US Secretary of State, John Kerry, says the United States and Turkey stand together, but Turkey's role in the fight against Islamic State is yet to be determined. Mr. Kerry made the announcement in Ankara on the latest leg of his Middle East tour. He's trying to get backing for the new US strategy against Islamic State, and 10 Arab countries have agreed to help, including Iraq, Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Well, bordering both Iraq and Syria, Turkey has so far refused to let its bases be used in US airstrikes. The country has been the main entry point into Syria for many fighters and was criticised for a lax border policy. But the situation has begun to change. Our correspondent Mark Lowen has been given rare access to the Turkish military patrolling the border, and from there he sent us this report.
Their day begins with the oath to protect the honour of the Turkish border. Turkey's army is at the front line, Islamic militants in Syria just a few hundred metres away. Opposing the Assad regime, Turkey's been blamed for allowing jihadi groups to grow under its watch. Now it's hitting back. Suddenly they see movement, people trying to cross. They go down to investigate who has breached the border. It's a family. Just a few of the 3 million Syrians who have fled the war, young lives destroyed.
The troops come heavily armed, taking every precaution in case the people caught are involved in smuggling or any other illegal activity. In this case, though, it appears they're simply refugees, hoping for a better life in Turkey. The Turkish army has been accused of being too lax in patrolling the border. Now it wants to show it's clamping down hard.
Hayfek tells me 22 members of her family left because the regime bombed their village and killed their children. Not all of us made it, she says. One of our brothers died. Syrian jihadis and foreign fighters have also crossed the 900-kilometre border. But as Islamic State has grown, holding 49 Turkish diplomats in Iraq hostage, Turkey appears to have woken up to the threat.
There are armed vehicles.
Syria and Iraq are next door, Islamic State raging in both. But the Turkish military insists it can protect Europe.
We were not slow to secure our borders. With our precautions and weapons, Europe and Turkey must have confidence in us. Islamic State will not be able to attack our borders. If they come, we will respond with all our might.
Simple methods are used too. Ditches to stop fuel smuggling from IS-controlled areas, and a wall now built at the most vulnerable point. But it's only 13 kilometers long. The opposition says it's all too late.
The Turkish government has helped these groups to grow. Today, areas where IS or Al-Nusra are dominant are very close to the Turkish border. Militants come and go there.
And they disappear fast. We spotted fighters from the Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Nusra front on the other side, but they vanished into the forest. It is a reminder of how close the danger is, and how the West relies on Turkey's ability to confront it. Mark Lowen, BBC News, on the Turkey-Syria border.
Well, for more on Turkey's role in the IS crisis, with me is the Turkish analyst and researcher Ziya Meral. Thank you very much for coming in. In the last day or so, I've seen Turkey described as an unwilling ally, as the weakest link in the fight against IS. These comments, criticisms, are they fair?
They're not fair for various reasons. I mean, a lot of that I think infer from basic reports or the fact that Turkish government has followed the wrong policy of bringing injunctions against questions around ISIS, so the Turkish journalists have not been able to report it. Over the last 1 year, Turkey has put some 6,000 people from intelligence coming from Interpol on no entry list to Turkey. It has deported more than 1,000 people. It has arrested around 17,000 people in its borders near Hatay area, and it regularly works with Western intelligence agencies on these issues. So I think there's a disparity between what we see in media and versus what has been happening over the last 8-9 months actually. And let's not forget, 49 Turkish diplomats are now currently in kept as captives by ISIS. So that goes to show that Turkey was not necessarily sleeping over this threat, and it feels that threat much closer to home than anybody in Europe at the moment.
Yeah, and I just wonder, without dwelling too much on that hostage situation, is that part of the sensitivity, as we heard John Kerry say, there are some sensitivities that Turkey needs to work with, that the US needs to work around with Turkey?
Exactly. I think there are three major sensitivity areas. One of them is obviously what will happen to Turkish diplomats. They're currently used as human shields and bargaining chips, and Turkey obviously cannot jeopardize their safety. Secondly, there's the question of a real threat to Turkey. ISIS has not necessarily targeted Turkey directly thus far, but with 900 square kilometers border and most worryingly some local support possibly towards ISIS and some local recruits, Turkey is facing the most immediate terror risk coming from ISIS if it was to publicly declare a war against it. And thirdly, the long-term sensitivity. The US plan at the moment does not have any tangible expression of a long-term solution to questions of Syria and Iraq, and unless we address them, the threat of Syria and an intervention against it will bring so many tensions to Turkey, from humanitarian aid to financial responsibilities and a prolonged security question over some 900 kilometers long border. So that's why it's no surprise, just as US has put parameters against its military intervention, such as no boots on the ground, Turkey is also saying, I am with US, but there are certain places I cannot go.
Yeah, but are there not another couple of factors here? One is the Kurdish equation, and the second factor, that Turkey wouldn't want to see anything done that would strengthen an Assad regime that it's wanted gone for the last 3 and a bit years.
Indeed, as President Obama himself has acknowledged, the idea that we should work with now Assad against ISIS as lesser of the evils is morally and practically and policy-wise bankrupt, so that's not really what is being agreed upon. The question upon the Kurdish issues, Turkey has been going through vulnerable, precarious, but at the same time really promising peace talks with PKK at the moment, and within a month or two we expect a new roadmap to be announced, and that will ultimately tie the question of how Turkey can engage with particularly Kurds in Syria directly over mutual concerns. But Turks work closely with northern Iraqi Kurdistan, and I think that could also happen for Syria as well.
Ziya Meral, so much to talk about. Thank you so much for coming in and discussing some of the issues with us. Now let's take a look at some of the